Alright, so I decided to write another Star Wars fan fiction series. As a trial, I'm going to make it for members only for now. This one may take a while to complete, so please be patient with it, as there are going to be multiple stories involved from multiple perspectives. The video won't be relevant to the voiceover, and I'm not an animator yet, so I may re-edit the video when I learn the animation process, or at least some stills for the characters. But for now, this is meant to be heard, not seen. So enjoy the story with some Order 66 stock footage. These characters are all new, with only mentions of past characters. With all that said, this is the first chapter of my Order 66 series titled Coruscant. Coruscant wasn't the strongest Jedi among those he had been training with. He was often teased about it when the Jedi Masters weren't looking. His blue Pantoran skin made the taunting even worse, and he was often called a Chiss, even though Chiss were rare in the core worlds and even in the mid-rim, as if being called a Chiss was an insult anyways. Coruscant wasn't like the other Jedi in so many ways. Most of the other teens his age came from families. Although they had no memory of their families, it still gave them some kind of personal connection to the Force that he would never have, and it made the Jedi cause all that much more worthwhile for the others. This made him feel personally disconnected to the Jedi way, to some degree. But Coruscant wasn't unskilled. Sure, he wasn't able to lift objects as high as some of the other kids, and his connection to the living Force wasn't as strong. But he had once impressed Master Yoda during lightsaber training. In fact, he could beat most of his classmates in one-on-one lightsaber sparring duels by the time he was 12 years old. But there was one he couldn't beat so easily. Cinda was the only friend Corrine knew, and they were inseparable. Cinda's greenhorn skin had also set her apart from the other Jedi students. Cadessa Nikto, also discriminately called Green Nikto, weren't known to be Jedi. Warriors? Absolutely, but they were mostly hired hands in the criminal underworld, serving as security for crime bosses. The other kids would call her the daughter of Jabba the Hutt in jest. But it didn't faze her. She was proud of her accomplishments in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and felt the other teenagers were just jealous. Her unique ability to lower the pain tolerance of her adversaries made Cinda not only the hardest to beat in hand-to-hand training, but taunting her had to be from a distance, and mostly in silence. She was told this ability was called Crucitorn, and had been reprimanded a few times for using it to fight back against her fellow classmates when she would catch them making fun of her. Nothing too serious, a pinch here, a poke there, but it was enough to make them feel like a Gundark was biting into them. The Masters knew the children were, well, children. They didn't tolerate it, but they didn't always catch it happening either. Today was to be their final day of youngling training, and the next day was going to be the day that every Jedi youngling dreamed of. The teenagers were going to gather to showcase their skills before the Masters. Masters ranging from all ages. Those who just had their Padawans complete their trials and were looking for a new apprentice, to those freshly out of their own trials and recently achieving the rank of Jedi Knight. The younglings whispered among one another that they would prefer a seasoned master, with the actual rank of master. It was about the prestige, but also the experience a seasoned master had during these troubled war times. However, it wasn't up to them. If a would-be master chose them, they had little choice but to become their Padawan learner. But if they weren't chosen, then this is what Corrine feared the most. They would be handed over to the Council of Reassignment. Although the younglings training masters tried to make reassignment sound more appealing than it was, the children knew this is where a Jedi's dreams of one day becoming a master went to die. But reassignment was extremely rare. When the long day's training had ended, the masters could tell that Corrine was worried. He wore his emotions like a mask, something the masters were unsuccessful in removing from the troubled teen, and it often caused complications in his training. But worried wasn't the exact word Corrine would use. He had traces of self-doubt and angst. What if he was chosen by a master and couldn't complete the training, or finish the Padawan training only to fail the trials? Or maybe he wouldn't be chosen at all. He had no home to return to if he was a failure. All the younglings knew the story of Ahsoka Tano, the youngling who virtually forced her way into training under Anakin Skywalker, then became a hero of the war. Ahsoka was told to have been much like Corrine, only she didn't let the taunting of the other students hold her back. It actually made her stronger with the Force. To land a master like Anakin Skywalker would be a dream come true to any of the younglings, and it said that Ahsoka had left the Jedi Order and Skywalker was free to choose again. What if he was at that recruitment? That added to Corrine's worries. He had often been instructed to meditate on his worries. It helped a bit, but Corrine was taking them more seriously this evening, more than any other. He knew these weren't feelings a Jedi should have. The recruitment process would be arduous, and most masters had an idea of who they would pick even before entering the showcase. And a small thought entered his mind. What if he's already been chosen? It wasn't unheard of for a strong master to pick the run of the litter. Corrine had to meditate, if only to put these thoughts out of his mind for just long enough to finish the recruitment process. Then his new master could raise him to be more secure in his abilities. He would be away from the taunting and could train as a Padawan without those distractions. Cinda was walking alongside Corrine through the halls as the pair headed to their chambers. She was nothing but encouraging, saying things like, "You're better than you know, and we may not have natural families, but we have this family and they care for you." She would often tell him these things. It was encouraging at those times, but this time Corrine felt a deep sincerity coming from her, and this motivated him. He may actually believe her this time. But another worry crept in. He had a fondness for Cinda, a fondness Jedi were not supposed to entertain. It could lead to attachment, and soon Cinda would be gone. Taking her words seriously, Corrine decided this was his defining moment as a Jedi. He would become a Padawan, and he would complete the trials. As Corrine was saying his goodbyes to Cinda for the evening, excitement ran out through the temple. Masters, Padawans, and younglings cheering and gathering in groups to talk. And there it was. Corrine overheard a couple Jedi talking, knights he believed. There for the recruitment, he was sure. General Grievous had been defeated by Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. The war was over. This emboldened Corrine. He no longer had to worry about living up to Jedi like Ahsoka Tano. He would be free to be a guardian of peace, not a member in the Grand Army of the Republic. This news took a massive weight off Corrine's shoulders. Meditation was that much more appealing. Corrine could barely contain his excitement, something he had not felt since he won his first lightsaber sparring match against a classmate. He hurried to the control panel and pressed the button to open his door so hard and fast that it bent his finger back to an uncomfortable position. As the door opened and the lights came on, his chamber was empty. His bunkmates had not returned from the day's training, but it would only be a matter of time before they would finish reveling in the victory of the war. So without regard to even removing his boots or robe, he sat in the middle of the chamber floor, hopefully for the last time. Time passed slowly as Corrine Tal was deep in meditation. He felt his worries lifting, his doubt receding from his own conscious thought. He felt his face return to its natural blue color from that of a yellowish tint. He was worthy of a good master, and not one thought of becoming reassigned entered his mind. Only clarity and peace. Then suddenly, something pulled him from his meditation, a warning from the Force. Then a sound he had not heard ever coming from the corridors outside and at a distance. Blaster fire. It was unmistakable. He had heard the sound many times in training, but this time it didn't feel like training remotes. This was real. Without a thought, Corrine leapt to his feet. With a wave of his hand, the lights in his chamber grew from a dull glow to a brilliance that almost seemed unnatural. The sounds were growing closer. As he ran for the door, he could hear the sound of lightsabers igniting. As the door swooshed open, the sounds were closer than they had originally sounded, and he could see children of all ages running away from it, passing his chamber in herds. He peeked his head from the door and saw a knight at the far corner redirecting blaster fire against his lightsaber. But the attacker was around the corner and couldn't be seen from Corrine's angle. Another student approached quickly and Corrine pulled him into the chamber door. "What's happening?" he shouted. The child, no more than 10 years old, out of breath, managed only a few words. "Clones. Here." Run! And the child ran out of the room and away from the master at the other end. Run, he thought. No. Corrine Tal was a guardian of peace, and this wasn't about proving himself to any would-be master. This was about preserving the order that gave him a home. He was bound to help those Jedi and clones fight these invading battle droids. With a newfound courage, Corrine jumped from his room and began running toward the Jedi defending the dorm. He made it about halfway, watching closely as the Jedi deflected blaster bolt after blaster bolt. To his horror, the Jedi was then struck in the chest. Corrine stopped in his tracks as he watched the brave Jedi fall. He had never seen someone get shot, but he knew it happened outside the comforts of the upper levels of Coruscant. From the corner emerged two clones in white with blue stripes on the front of their armor, approached the fallen Jedi. We're saved, he thought. As the Jedi moaned, then the unthinkable. Both clones aimed and shot the Jedi, landing both shots in the knight's chest. This wasn't a separatist attack at all. The clones had turned on the Jedi. How could this happen? Why is this happening? Were these rogue clones? The blue on their chests indicated they were under the command of Anakin Skywalker. There is no way this is possible. As the clones turned to face the confused team, he froze. Then, Corrine felt a firm grasp on his bicep as he heard a familiar voice. "What are you doing? Run!" Corrine recognized his fellow student from training, one that had mocked him. Then he felt the youngling pull him and run. Both hurried through the halls, one after the next, with similar scenes. Dead clones, carbon scoring, and lightsaber slashes to their armor. And less frequently were the valiant Jedi who fought the clones. Dead. As Corrine approached the center of the dorms, he saw 3 clones laying lifeless on the decorative floor. A few meters from them, Cinda, on her side with her lightsaber just out of her hand. Corrine stopped to try to help her to her feet, but he was too late. She was gone. As were other students he recognized, and some he didn't. Children, some no more than 5 years old. Others had been excited about beginning Padawan training the following day with their new masters. As Corrine reached the center of the dorms, a large circular room meant for students to gather and hang out between training sessions, he could hear from behind the recognizable voice of a clone. "Commander Appo, we have pushed them into the dorm common area. We're proceeding to intercept." Just a few steps to go, he was almost to the safety of the common area where he saw many students and masters still alive. Off in the distance, on the farther end of the room, he could see a blue lightsaber blade approaching from a corridor. Another master there to escort them to safety, he thought. As Corrine took his final step into the common area, he heard one last blaster rifle fire. Then he felt a quick, sharp burning in his back. Finally, darkness. As Star Wars fans, we have seen so many stories of survivors of Order 66. The story of Corrine Tal is not one of those. The event that changed the galaxy forever and so many lives also ended many innocent lives. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more of the stories I'm creating from different perspectives of Order 66. Thank you all for watching, and remember, this is the way, and positivity in the Star Wars community is the only way.